So early childhood language development is actually really fascinating. There's an explosive vocabulary growth during this age period. So when they come into this age period, they go from maybe 200 words in over 3 to 4 years, they are up to 10,000 words. This is largely due to something called fast mapping, and this is where a child quickly associates a meaning with a new word. So if they hear a sentence and they understand most of the words already, if there's a new word in that sentence, they can use the context of that sentence to figure out what that new word must mean. It's not always accurate, but they do really well with it, and it allows them to not use a lot of cognitive energy to be really efficient in acquiring their vocabulary. It's really interesting to look at the differences of what's acquired in what order, and that is impacted on the language that children speak and whether they're more verb friendly or noun friendly, but also what the adults in that environment emphasize. And so that adult modeling and the language that's heard impact what that vocabulary growth looks like. So a couple of the characteristics of early childhood language is being really literal and over-regularizing, right? So children will hear phrases and they may even use them before they truly understand them. So one of the examples given is, that's a piece of cake. Well, when they hear piece of cake, they probably think of more like the image on the slide there, that, oh, a piece of cake that you can eat. As they are exposed to more context and, experience a little bit more of the world, they'll start to learn that, oh, people say that it's a piece of cake when it's easy. And that makes my curiosity peak as to how that ever started. I'll have to do some Googling when I'm done with making this video. And as the other thing that you'll notice is that as they learn the rules of grammar, they apply these rules no matter what, so very uniformly. And if you've ever worked with a child learning to read, you are very quickly reminded of how irregular the English language is. We have a lot of things that don't follow the rules. So we have rules, but they're kind of more guidelines. So, a child may be saying, I eated that cake, because they know you add the ed ending when you're talking about something that's already happened. And then as they mature, they'll recognize that, oh, we don't use ed when we're talking about eating. We change the word to ate. And so some people think that shows that they don't understand language, and actually over-regularization is showing that they do understand the rules of the language. They've just encountered a situation where the rules don't apply. So as Vygotsky would tell you, the training or the adult support or scaffolding that children get impacts their language development. So Noam Chomsky would also tell you that the brain is built to acquire language, and for most children that is the case. Typically developing children pick language up very easily as long as they hear language. But there are some things that we can do to support that language development. One is that we can listen attentively to what children tell us. Children won't talk to us the same way if we're not giving them our full attention. So if we're really, truly, deeply engaged in a conversation with children, they recognize the value of their words. We can model accurate pronunciation. So if that child said, I eated the cake, we could say, you ate that cake, and then we can encourage elaboration. What did the cake taste like, right? And so we don't have to correct children. And I know in the book it models something there that I'm a little bit iffy about, that I might want to change on a later revision about telling them what they should be saying. They don't need that. All we need to do is model it correctly for them. They'll pick it up just like they picked up the improper use of that, right? They will figure it out, they will make sense of it, and they will produce it accurately on their own. And so we really just have to engage with children in conversation. So the last thing that I want to include in this short video is a brief look at the milestones. And so around 3, children are developing the ability to follow instructions. They can name most of the familiar things around them. They understand words like in, on, and under. They'll often tell you their first name, how old they are, and whether they're a boy or a girl. They can name a friend. They say things like I, me, we, you, and they use some plurals, cars, dogs, cats. They talk well enough for strangers to understand them most of the time, and so that depends child to child. And they'll begin carrying on conversations up to 2 to 3 sentences. At around 4, they're knowing some basic rules of grammar. They know when to use he or she. They can sing a song or say a poem like Itsy Bitsy Spider or Wheels on the Bus from memory. They can tell stories. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. They can probably tell you their first and last name if that's been modeled to them. And at 5 years, they tend to speak really clearly. They tell a simple story using full sentences that someone else can follow. They start to use future tense, like Grandma will be here. And if they've been modeled, if this has been modeled for them, they can tell you their name and maybe their address or phone number. And that's it for language development in early childhood.